And
Yeah,
show Gloves Off with David Singer. How you doing? Where's the theme music? I missed the theme music. Where's the disclaimer? Where's the disclaimer? I got to read the disclaimer. Here we go. The views and opinions expressed here are those of the host and the guest, and not necessarily those of community newspapers. We have to do the disclaimer all the time. Anyway, for those of you who expected to see Alice Bravo and Frank Guymere, there was a scheduling issue. They will be here January 21st to discuss transportation issues in Dade County, South Dade County. Unfortunately, I'm by myself, and Ed Silva has graciously agreed to join us by Zoom, so people wouldn't just see me sitting here by myself. So welcome. I do have a story to tell you before we start off. So as you know, Ed, I need a small little operation with a belly button hernia. So I called a friend 2 days ago. We will call him JX, for some sort of ideas on who to go to for the surgery. And he was hemming and hawing, and he finally gave me a name of a doctor and a phone number. So today I called the doctor up, and as with all doctors' offices, you're put on hold for about 10 minutes. I hang up. I go, I can't deal with this. And then I called back later on this afternoon, and I go, hi, my name's David, and your doctor, so-and-so was referred to me by somebody. I have a belly button hernia, and I need it operated on. And the person on the other end of the phone says, do you have a pet? I go, excuse me? I go, I need surgery because I got a belly button hernia, and I was told to call you by JX. He recommends you highly, or recommends the doctor highly. And she goes, yeah, but you have any pets? And I go, yeah, I have 3 dogs. What does that have to do with anything? And she goes, this is a veterinarian's office. Yeah. So he actually sent me, my buddy, my long-term friend sent me to a veterinarian's to get a hernia surgery. So that's the way my day's been going. How's your day been going, Mr. Silva?
Oh, David, mine days. I'm sorry I'm not there with you. That was the plan. I'm glad I was able to fill in. I'm sure your audience isn't happy that I'm filling in, but you reached out, and I was, obviously to help out our friend. I'll do whatever it takes. But I've had a not a very good day in the architectural world. But we're working through it. Resolved the issue. Had nothing to do with the architecture, but we resolved the issue, and we're moving on. But I'm stuck up here far from Miami right now, and I won't probably be back until later on tonight. But you know what? There's always better days ahead. I can tell you that I'm very happily engaged back in the profession that I love and have loved all my life. So that does make me happy.
Well, I really appreciate you filling in on such short notice. I found out yesterday that Alice and Frank could not be here. I believe they got a TPO meeting today that they did not realize until the last minute. Like I said, they will be here the 21st of January, and we will talk about all things traffic. So I guess for right now, let's talk about Palmetto Bay a little bit, and then we'll move on to other subjects. You and I haven't had a good chance to talk in this type setting before, but we're both losers in our respective races. I guess that's appropriate to say. So let's talk about the status of Palmetto Bay right now. Give me 5 individuals who you believe have a negative effect on the health of Palmetto Bay, and not just because they don't agree with you, but because of maybe the way they go about things in Palmetto Bay that is unwarranted.
Wow, that's a great question, David. No, we haven't had a chance to talk much since the elections, actually. And yeah, we both fell up a little short in our races. You were a lot closer than I was. And I have a feeling we can probably trace it back to a lot of the misinformation that's put out there against both of us. If I were to name 5 individuals, I'm pretty sure my list would be pretty close to yours. I kind of love to know what your list is as well. But I'll start off right off at the front with by selling by saying that our former mayor Shelley Stanzik would be one, Gary Pastorella would be
Okay,
two.
let's stop for a second. But give me a reason. Give me your reason why, because I have my reasons, but I don't want to. I prefer not to disclose my reasons without hearing your thought process on it.
Well, a lot of our issues stem back to her administration. Our fiasco in our downtown and the way that whole zoning code came about and what's in the zoning code, whatever the heights were and what they were not supposed to be. That all started under her administration. She was the one that was in charge of that task force. She was the one that was in charge of hiring the planning firms that did the original zoning codes and the traffic studies for that. Let's start off there, but we can go on and say she was the one that got us into something that's very eerily familiar right now, which is the Palmer Trinity litigation fiasco that could very potentially have put us in a very wrong spot. If it wouldn't have been for then Mayor Flynn and myself, we were able to negotiate and walk away from an $800,000 litigation check that we owed them. And Palmer Trinity was very gracious. They believed us and took a leap of faith to walk away from that settlement. And I mean, if you go by Palmer Trinity now, it's a great campus, great school, and there really is not very many issues that you hear coming out of that sector of our village because of Palmer Trinity. They've actually stepped up and lived up to their part of their promises. You can look at the way that she's sitting here now, and she's advising our current mayor. And I think she's advising our current mayor down a path that's going to lead to even further issues down the path for our village. So,
I mean, I can remember back in the day where I got involved with and Palmer Trinity litigation was going on, and everybody was afraid that the expansion of Palmer Trinity would increase the traffic in the residential neighborhoods around the school. And I think it's done just the opposite with the entrance off 186th Street. 184th Street. I think that the neighbors are probably pretty happy that other entrance was built, and the fact that I mean I've actually toured the school. I think they've done a tremendous job, and they're a good partner with Palmetto Bay. Another reason that they didn't want the school to expand was that it didn't have a tax base. But when you're talking about schools, schools don't really give money. They don't pay taxes. It doesn't matter if it's a public school or private school. They pretty much that's just the routes, and they are very good partners with Palmetto Bay.
Yeah, they are, and there's certain things in that agreement that have come about it that have been good for the community. Like every year we're doing a veterans breakfast at Palmer Trinity. That was part of the agreement that was negotiated by Mayor Flynn and myself. And there's a few other items that were in that agreement that we as a village have never taken advantage of, like potential use of their gym, being able to use their walking paths. There's quite a few things that were in that agreement that we just never have, for some reason or another, never really have taken advantage of. But it was a great agreement, and it made one issue. And as you well know, litigation is rearing its ugly head again. It seems like, Groundhog's Day, we're repeating the past. But that was an issue that divided our community badly, very badly, and should never really have happened.
Also, I would assume that during the and we'll get off this in like 30 seconds, but during the campaigning, there was a bunch of misinformation that was put out that was directly due to those two individuals that really had no basis at all in some of the views, and it's unfortunate, but if that it brings politics, it brings Washington D.C. politics to Palmetto Bay, and it should never happen that way.
Unfortunately, that's true. Hard to fight. I didn't want to fight it. I actually tried to run an issue and a campaign that was based on the issues, but you know, the residents spoke. Congratulations to Vice Mayor Tellem. She won fair and square. You know, I'll use your quote from last week's show. The Queen now has her court, and we'll see how they handle things.
It will be interesting, and as I said last week, I hope they're extremely successful in turning the village around and actually representing the residents, which I don't think they've done very well in the last couple of years. So let's get off that subject. Let's move on to, and I asked Gene the same question, like 3 serious issues Palmetto Bay is facing over the next couple of years.
Well, those issues are pretty relevant. I don't think that, you know, and you're starting to see a little bit more of it today with your guest today that had to go in front of the TPO. I think transit and transportation are going to come back to the forefront very quickly to our village. Congratulations to our new commissioner for D8. I think Danielle is going to do a great job, but you know, that's very interesting how they are she's on a different point of view than our county mayor in terms of bridging. I'm going to be very curious to see how that plays out in the next few months.
Yeah, let's stop for a second, because there've been, you know, the bridging has been an issue on and off for years. I would say, how long did you work for the Village of Palmetto Bay? 8 years?
I wish. I'm glad you're telling me it seems like 8. I was there for almost 13 years, David. Okay,
13 years. Sorry. You know, has the bridging always been an issue in those 13 years?
Yes, sir.
So
from the very beginning.
I mean, at the very last, I thought the issue of the 87th Avenue Bridge was pretty much put to bed until they tried other alternatives, which maybe you can expound on, being the roundabouts on Old Cutler. And it seems to be rearing its head again, having one bridge put in instead of doing the total, you know, all the total bridges that I would like to, you know, expect.
Well, yeah, there's, you know, it's very interesting right now, David.
Hold on. We lost you for a second. Are you okay?
I'm here.
Okay, there we go. We lost you for a second.
Sorry about that. You know, it's really interesting about transit and transportation right now. You have a lot of new commissioners that are on the dais in the county, and they all have different ideas. You have the D7 commissioner that's looking at ways to be able to pay for transit down the road by basically bringing back express toll lanes as a proposal for the BRT. You have the commissioner from D9, Keone McGee, that actually has a resolution that just got passed that puts a 60-day pause on the BRT awards.
Yeah, I thought he pulled that. Did that get voted on?
I believe, my understanding is it was voted on, and they did agree to a 60-day pause in which they're going to look at alternatives and other solutions. So these are really interesting times, and something that people need to pay attention to, because transportation and transit are going to actually be relooked at from the top to the bottom again, I think.
Well, I think personally that, you know, how much money did they collect? What was it, $2.5 billion in sales tax revenue?
That number varies. It's around there somewhere. Yeah, they've collected more than enough to be able to do what they wanted to do.
And the individuals, the Miami-Dade County residents who voted for that, what was it, 15 years ago? Has to be around 15 years ago, expected that money to be used on expansion of the metro rail. You know, there's some municipalities that are okay with the BRT. I would like to see the metro rail go all the way down to Cutler, what used to be Cutler Ridge Mall. It's Southland Mall now. and then turn into, the BRTs. And I think that's what they should really be looking at, because I think the use of those tax dollars needs to go to where it was promised to go to, and not places not places, and not get misguided into areas where it was not supposed to be used.
Well, David, when you were on the council, I believe that you passed a resolution basically asking for a lawsuit against the county on just this subject. If memory serves me, it passed. But like other things in our village, we never really acted upon it, and it never really got done. But it would have been good to try to force that question and force what we need to do. I mean, in all fairness to the county, they have done, many positive things in terms of transportation in the last few years.
And they did expand the metro during that time period. They expanded the metro rail to the airport.
They expanded the metro rail to the airport. They've now got a line that's being proposed in Miami Beach. They just signed an agreement with the Bright Line to be able to take something up to US 1 corridor up to Aventura. And they're looking at, I believe, a BRT system that will go up and down the airport expressway to basically be able to take you to FIU. So they've done some stuff. They are moving forward on what they can. So but again, it always seems like that the stepchild, and one area that's always suffering the most is South Dade, and I just don't understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta honestly tell you, they've never really focused on mass transit as much as they have on development and tax dollars. As long as I've been living here, which is a good 59 years next week. It would be nice if that was turned around in some way, so the residents can actually move in this great city.
Well, they go hand in hand, don't they? I mean, if you really want to have development, you really need to be able to have transportation modes and methods for them. Because if not, municipalities like ours, where we both have chosen to live in, Palmetto Bay, suffer. And we have residents that are suffering because of all the traffic that's coming from deep South Dade. They have to go through us to go to work every day.
Hey, it's not only us that suffer. I mean, I understand our residents. I mean, if you look at Palmetto Bay, there's only 4 ways to get through our city. You got 82nd, you got Old Cutler,
82nd to 82nd is one. You have Old Cutler Road and you have US 1.
Yeah. So it's 3 ways to really get through. Pinecrest doesn't have that issue, and the village, town of Cutler Bay doesn't have that issue. But it's also their residents that are suffering. Homestead residents are suffering because they may have to work down in downtown Miami or Coral Gables, and I would assume that if you take your car or you take mass transit, it takes you an hour and a half from Homestead to downtown Miami, if not longer. I've heard some stories where it takes 2 hours. So if it's 2 hours each way, that's a 4-hour commute on a daily basis, and it really takes away from the quality of life.
Yep, and there's a lot of issues like that, and I'm going to leave this for Frank and Alice and discuss with you in January. But there's a lot of issues, and there's been a lot of pushback on some of the more innovative thinking that they've tried to do and try to bring, closer to home. It's a shame that they moved the station that we had that was supposed to be near our town center on 174th Street, and they had to move it to 168th Street. But that's because of us. That wasn't because of the county. The county tried to hold that open for us for as long as we could, and we just never were able to close that deal. Or while we weren't really able to get, as an administration, we weren't really able to get the mayor and the council to really look into that and try to push that forward. So
that was a $70 million debacle.
Yep.
Where we were promised $70 million if we did a town square.
Well, it wasn't. There was a $5 million paycheck there. Well, from the county to be able to build it on 174th Street, and we just couldn't put it together because as administration, we can propose things, but it's up to really those that elect to be able to put those policies forward. And I understand that there's been a lot of emails to the contrary, but the policymakers make the policy, and that's always the way it has been.
Absolutely. I want to follow up because there seems to be some misinformation about you making policy where I can tell you that is totally unfounded. You don't make policy. The council makes policy, and they basically tell you what to do and when to do it. So, anybody who sits there and blames, any kind of financial deficit that we have right now on Ed or any other village manager, Greg Truitt or anybody else is sadly misguided by emails that are sent out by people who really either they don't understand or they just don't care. So,
at the bottom line, David, and I do believe this from the bottom of my heart, a lot of us love our village. And a lot of us are in this for the right reasons. You loved our village, and unfortunately, sometimes, and we've had this discussion, I think you wore it too close to your sleeve. You are who you are, and that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way at times. But you were truthful, and you spoke your truths all the time. What's sad about the system that we're under now is that we have certain individuals in our village that misrepresent that truth, and they confuse our regular residents. I mean, I can tell you now that this is the first time, other than the fact that I came on the Michael Miller show, that I've actually come out to discuss anything. When you are in your day-to-day affairs, when you're doing your livelihood, when you're working, when you're worrying about your family issues and all that stuff, you don't really think about your local government as much as you should. So I can very easily see how most people get confused as to what's right and what's wrong. It's very easy.
Well, my parents always taught me when I was growing up to tell the truth. So it might rub people the wrong way, but I rather go down in flames and tell the truth than sit there and win and be lying to everybody. That's not the way my brain functions. And I would hope that it's not the way a lot of people's brains or ethics function.
Let me ask you, because we started off by saying who the 5 people are, and I don't know what your list is. I'd kind of like to hear that.
I probably have the same list as you. Some of the people on there that you didn't mention are some of the people who incorporated the village of Palmetto Bay, but don't necessarily represent what the residents of Palmetto Bay stand for anymore. It's people that have a lack of vision, and it's people basically that literally just give out way too much information that the residents actually believe, unfortunately. So we'll leave it at that. But your top 2 would be my top 2. Let's put it that way. So we talked on one serious subject, serious issue facing Palmetto Bay. You want to give me your other 2? Because I think I know what they are.
Well, you obviously, the budget's one of them. That's an issue that's going to be haunting us for the next couple, 3 years, if not longer. And I don't, it's going to take a lot of soul searching as to what our role as a government is going to be able to make sure that you can make ends meet. I mean, I read where the current new manager is going to be looking at everything and questioning everything to make sure that he can look at as many cost-cutting things that he can implement to try to make the budget balanced without having to borrow from our reserves. I wish him luck in that endeavor, and I hope he does pull it off. But then you look at things that are happening even now from when they passed the budget, where you were still there, to what's happened in a short 2-month period. And you see a lot of events and a lot of pomp and circumstances that are happening that weren't budgeted. So it's almost hard to understand how they're going to be able to make a budget work if they can't even follow it from day one.
Yeah, I was just talking to a resident who is very active in Palmetto Bay politics about 3 or 4 years ago. We'll call him Jim A. And he threw up his hands with me on the phone the other day and said, I just can't be involved anymore because it's so frustrating. He goes, like you, 3 or 4 years ago, I warned everybody what was going to happen with the budget and with the deficits that we're facing Palmetto Bay, and nobody would listen. And he's a very bright guy, and he's another. His background's accounting, like mine is. It's unfortunate that some of the people that were involved in Palmetto Bay politics, and there were a lot. I remember going to meetings where there were at least 50 people sitting there, and they were really involved. And they've gotten so disenchanted that they just don't want to deal with it anymore because of the way it's heading in Palmetto Bay.
Yeah, it's totally understandable. I get it. It's frustrating. You try to fight the good fight. You try to talk about the issues that you face, and you just get circumvented and told that there is no budget issues. Well, there are. I mean, I'm sorry how you may want to try to paint a different picture, but the facts are the facts. We couldn't even refinance our bond issue to save our village money because of all the litigation that we face and because of the budget crunch that we're going through. That's costing the residents, us, $200,000 a year that we could have been saving if we would have been able to do things the right way, and we didn't. And that's just one example of everything that's going wrong in our village. There's the CARES Act's another one. We could have gotten money for the CARES Act, which would have been grants. Cutler Bay did it. Cutler Bay got $500,000. We didn't get a penny. We just didn't do our homework. But that's always blamed on others, and there's no accountability and there's no responsibility is the biggest issue that I see in our village.
Well, that's because there's no transparency. Yeah. So if you want to take responsibility, you have to be transparent about it. And It just hasn't happened in our village. I can tell you for certain that they're going to, in my opinion, have to raise taxes next year. I think that's a no-brainer when you're running $2.4 million deficit, and you're really liquidating what you have in your reserves right now. Do you remember? I think it was
they're at $2.8 million.
Two more.
If you add last year and this year, and answer one of your commentators on the side here, Alice and Frank had a scheduling conflict, so you're stuck with me for a little while. I was glad to step in and help out our friend and David and be able to be on his show.
You actually see the comments, huh?
I can actually see the comments scrolling up. Yeah, this is a very interesting. I kind of actually like this. I can't see you on my screen for some reason.
Oh, that's too bad. I'm looking as pretty. I'm looking as pretty as ever.
Yeah. Okay. Did you shave? That's all I want.
Yeah. Michael Miller. Hello, Michael. Hold on. Michael Miller told me I had to shave if I was going to do the show. So he said it's mandatory. He was sitting right here talking to me before. You got disconnected again. He was sitting here talking to me. He was sitting here talking to me about 10, 15 minutes before you came on, and then he ran away. He did not want to be a third wheel.
Wow. I thought Michael would have been on the show with us tonight. Oh, well, that's just the way things go. Anyway,
I see one question about.
I also do see them being. Not only do I see them raising the millage rate next year, they have an issue that they're going, as you well know, that they're going to have to be looking at the FP&L franchise fee and either coming back to the residents and telling them, sorry, we were going to sunset them, but we can't, or look at even a bigger deficit in about right before the 22 election.
Well, if you think about it, I think what do we have in reserves now? It's between 7 and 8 million, I think, in reserves.
About 8 million, yeah.
8 million, right? So, I mean, the way it's going, you got to have at least. You have to keep at least 3 million in reserves, at least for our village.
You have to at least a minimum of, yes, it's a little bit. It's right around $3 million.
Yeah.
The GFOA recommends that you must have a minimum of two months of operations as a reserve in the banks, and that's right around $3 million. But you also set aside money for a bunch of different other issues like for hurricanes or for revenue volatility, for
Well,
emergency.
you have all your capital assets that are depreciating, so you have to set aside the
Yep.
reserves for
Add that all up,
Yeah.
they're basically looking at, they may have a million and a half more that they can go through before they start having to change those policies around.
But they'll blame all this on COVID. I can see it now.
You know what though? But that rings hollow when you look at Pinecrest and you look at the fact that Pinecrest was able to balance their budget without raising the taxes and without having to borrow from reserves. So that really rings hollow. And if you look at Cutler Bay, even though they had COVID, they had to borrow about $800,000 from their reserves, not the $1.7 million. And that's a city that's twice our size. So they can blame COVID, and I'm sure they will try to blame COVID, or they can blame previous administrations. But the reality is that there's something wrong, because when you look at the cities around us, they're doing a much better job than we are.
Well, I will have the mayor of the town of Cutler Bay on, I think, the first week of February. So I will be asking him how he's doing it, because I think he's doing a fantastic job with the town of Cutler Bay. I like the land swap. I like saving the land and putting their town hall instead of putting more residential units off Old Cutler Road. I think they really do have some vision. So we'll get him on here, and you can ask him some questions. I'll ask him some questions, and it'll be interesting.
It's not only that they're going to be building their village hall there, they're also going to be building, are you ready? Community center there.
Yeah.
Which is also, haven't you noticed how most issues in Palmetto Bay become political? A community center, a place for our residents to gather and be able to have senior programming and programming for our children next to one of our parks, for some reason became a political football. And it should never have. Look at Pinecrest, how successful they are with what they've done with their community center. Look at Cutler Bay trying to emulate that with their.
I was telling, sorry to interrupt you, but I was telling everybody about a community center, because everybody said, oh, we don't want a community center. We don't want a community center. I said, all a community center is a vertical park. So if you don't want a community center, you don't want parks, because it's basically the same thing. The only problem that you have is you don't want them to run too far in a deficit, thereby draining reserves from the village. So, when we were talking about a community center, we had a whole group of people that went out and we're going to come back and give us ideas on how it could be a net and wouldn't be losing money every year. But that was killed.
But David, if you look at Pinecrest, they're breaking even now. Now that they've expanded it and doubled the size of it, they're actually breaking even. So it's not a drag on their general government things. And that could very easily be done. I mean, one of the things that we passed at the village is a park impact fee. Where's that money? Where's that money being put? How's that money going to be used? And why isn't there a conversation ongoing as to how that money should be allocated?
And why is it that residents don't know we're getting that money and how it's being spent?
Yep. Not only do you have an impact fee on parks, but you also have an impact fee for traffic, which is monies that could be used for a substantial amount of improvements in our village. But there isn't any conversation about it. It's kind of like, it's been swept under the rug, and no one's supposed to know about it. So
over and under, you think the bridge on 87th Avenue is going forward? It seems like our new commissioner, Daniela Cohen-Higgins, is, from what I've read in the Herald, is all for the bridge.
Oh, she is all for the bridge. It's going to be very curious to see what happens with that. I'm more interested in knowing what's going to happen with that comprehensive traffic study that was supposed to happen. Will that go forward, or will that just sit there by the wayside and nothing happen? Because that's really what I believe would have been the better route to resolve our issues, is to really look at it comprehensively, look at everything. Include the Florida Department of Transportation in that conversation to see what we can do with US 1, and wait and try to push forward the changes on Old Cutler Road to see if that really did improve traffic flow by the 50% that the traffic engineers suggest that those models show that it should help our commute time. Now, those are the things that we need to have happen, but we also need to really look at the bridges and see if that is something that has to occur in our village or not, but not do it in a vacuum. Do it in a comprehensive traffic study. That's the right way.
Well, it should definitely be anything they're planning on doing. There should be town halls. They have to get the community. I mean, one of my problems was with 136th Street 10-foot path was because, and I've said this 1,000 times, is residents weren't notified and they had no clue, especially the ones that were living on 136th Street. Or if they didn't have a clue, they didn't realize it was going to be a 10-foot path. So if you're doing anything, i.e., traffic circles or bridges, you have to hear from the residents. And I know it's going to be a catfight because I've been to one of those hearings before, but it's imperative that there's some sort of transparency in regards to traffic. From what I understand, and you would know better than I, they had three traffic circles have been designed for Old Cutler Road. It's
it's 67th Avenue, 136th Street, 152 and 184.
Okay, so four traffic circles. I happen to like traffic circles. I know many people don't like traffic circles. I think they actually help move traffic along. I'm not a big fan of 4-way stop signs. But the issue with those traffic circles is they weren't planned. There was no plan on developing them prior to 2023.
You used to be able to give me a lot of information after I resigned. I'm not getting that information anymore since you're not in office. But I believe that the traffic, the program track for Old Cutler Road is 2023 because they're having to go through certain steps to be able to get there. It could be accelerated, but you need to have somebody to stay on top of the county to make sure it can get accelerated. I don't believe that we as a village can wait until 2023 for construction to commence. We need to try to push construction commencing in the next 12 months to 16 months, or we're going to have very serious issues in terms of traffic.
Oh no, traffic's coming back. This is my prediction. Traffic's coming back September of 2021, whether people want traffic or not.
I don't think it's going to be as bad as it was, but I think it's going to be a whole lot worse than what it is right now. I'm seeing one of the comments, and I agree with one of the comments that we need to have traffic. I'll put it this way: we need to have traffic solutions, not just an open grid. Traffic solutions before all of these developments happen in our town center, which is a disaster. You very well know, as I do, that if you look at all the zoning rights that are granted in that area, they didn't reduce density, they increased it by 2,000 units. That's a tragedy. That's a tragedy waiting to happen. And then if you look at what they've done, they approved traffic studies that show that you'd had to have the grid on Park Drive connected all the way to 174th, but they just stopped that completion of that grid very recently. So they're going against their own traffic studies and yet expanding the ability of the downtown to grow even more. It just makes no sense. But
yeah, the grid eventually is going to have to be complete, or you're not going to have anybody that's able to get to work. And like I said earlier, it's a serious issue with quality of life. And I'd hate to think that people are stuck in traffic for 2.5 hours.
I mean, and even little things like the freebie right now. My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, because you're going to know this better than I do, but the way the freebie works right now, it could only be one person at a time.
Only one person.
Why run it? How's that helping?
I think this is more of a PR propaganda. issue
why
than anything else.
isn't that being stopped for the time being? Save, here's a good concept. Save our taxpayers' monies and start it up again when it makes sense to have.
I agree. I mean, I voted. One of the last votes I had was to move that Gesundheit, move that to the side, and stop spending that money, and spend it on some other kind of traffic issue that we were having. So tell me the third. What's your third issue in Palmetto Bay?
Oh, I think our parks are a disaster, an ongoing disaster. We have no programming for our kids. We have no maintenance schedules that we are really following. We have a parks master plan that started, and I've seen claims that it's completed. It's not completed. It's a, excuse me, it's a start to a master plan that hasn't been completed. So we really have no plans going forward on our parks. We have a 10-acre piece of land that's on 168th Street across from Perrine, that the agreement that we got from the county was to turn that into a passive park, and we haven't even taken the first step forward in doing so. And then you've got environmental issues. You've got the 22-acre forest that, that was probably the very first thing I started my campaign on, because I believe very, very deeply that that's an area that we should try to protect. And it scares me to think that we're not following through on being able to get grant money to be able to do so. You look at the softball players at Palmetto Bay Park. They're talking about how horrible those fields are and how bad they are for their kids to play on. And the list goes on and on and on all the issues that park.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you need money to fix all that. So you're going to have to take from Peter to pay Paul. And, unfortunately, when I was younger and a kid, you used to have Howard Palmetto Corey League playing at Coral Reef Park. That's gone. And you also had the Broncos playing at Coral Reef Park, and that's gone. And, it's unfortunate that we've kicked out kids sports for the most part out of our parks, except for Palmetto Bay softball fields and soccer.
Yeah, and you know what? And sports are a very vital component to a kid's life. I'm a very adamant believer that my kids are as successful as they are right now because, they were very engaged in school, but my carrot to them was always my daughter to be able to play in soccer and my son to be able to play in baseball. And you need the parks, you need those activities to keep our kids engaged and out of trouble.
Yeah,
it's at Coral Reef Park. We have a building that was knocked down that now they're trying to pretend that the money was taken away from that to pay for that land that we purchased for the community center, which is totally
inaccurate.
It's artfully crafted to try to blame somebody else for their shortcomings. The fact of the matter is they have the money to be able to do that community center and replace that building, but and you know this as well as I do, they never could make up their mind as to what the program was, as to where it was supposed to go and what was supposed to be included. And, you had people like John that wanted to turn that into an ultra tennis center.
You're back off. I can keep talking to you. Well, the problem with not having a community building at Coral Reef Park is you still have camps, right? So if you have camps and you have kids out there, you should have a building that the kids can actually go to cool down, have water, have snacks, have lunch, and there's really nothing there except for a trailer now. I mean, that's the biggest issue, and I don't understand how they can knock the building down and not have some sort of plan on replacement.
Am I back on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't know where you lost me, but you know very well that we had council members that were asking for mega tennis centers and mega tennis facilities. And you had people advocating for all kinds of different things for that park, but there was never a consensus to go forward. That's the real reason why that building hasn't been replaced, because there is no consensus from that council as to what to do. You've got the, I use the moniker that it had, the $1 million hot dog stand that's sitting there idle. We had an agreement with the owners of Hole in the Wall, and because we can't work with them in trying to get some of their issues, i.e., their grease trap issues resolved, they've walked away from that, and that was a service.
That was a money maker.
Win-win.
Yeah. Yeah. So, before I wrap this up, I do want to talk about something that's very serious. We have two longtime residents, actually, Chuck and Donna Lackshaw. You're familiar with them. Their daughter, unfortunately, is fighting for her life right now due to cancer. Her name's Kim Lackshaw. She's a teacher at Palmetto Senior High School. She went to Palmetto Senior High School as a student. She went to Miami-Dade, and I think she went to South Alabama. She led the girls and men's volleyball to the state championships. I don't know if they ever won the state championships, but she brought them up there. And over the past year and a half, she's been fighting. Right now, they are trying to, through a GoFundMe, raise money for some medical treatments that are not covered by her insurance. It's really unfortunate that it is that way. But if anybody feels that they should or they would like to donate, she has a GoFundMe page. I'm sure the Lackshaws would really appreciate it. They're trying to raise, I think, $50,000, which is basically 2 treatments for her cancer that are not insurable, to help her out. I'm not exactly sure where you would look for the GoFundMe, other to say maybe you can put in Spike Kim's cancer and it might pop up. I'm sure the Lackshaws and I'm sure Kim, who has 2 beautiful kids and a husband, would be extremely grateful for any donations that they can get. And I know I'd appreciate it, as they've been, they're going through horrendous time, and they could use the support from Palmetto Bay. Other than that,
I'm trying to find a link, but I can't find it right now, but it's a very worthy cause. And I hope most everybody understands the time of the year.
Yeah, I mean, if I can send them the link, if you want to email me at dmsinger@bellsouth.net. That's dmsinger@bellsouth.net. Other than that, I really appreciate your time. I know you did this at the last second. I'm sorry that Alice and Frank weren't here, but I appreciate you being on. I appreciate you being on. Alice and Frank will be here on January 21st to talk about traffic. And then let me go through my guest list. On the 7th of January, Carl Sturge, who started the Miracle League, who and is now president of the Howard Palmetto Quarry League, will be on to talk about their program. On the 14th, I will have Yolanda Berkowitz on the program talking about dog rescues. She's heavily involved in dog rescues. Before that, she was head of the Garden Litem program, children's. I can't remember the name. And then the 21st will be Alice and Frank. So I would like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a Happy New Year. Enjoy your time with your families. Stay safe. Don't wear masks. Don't spread the virus. And I will definitely see everybody next year. If you ever need to reach me or if you want to ask me a question, like I said, dmsinger@bellsouth.net. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Ed.
And I want to wish everybody a Merry.
Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll give you the last word.
I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. I hope that we all get behind our council and that we fix our problems. David, I really appreciate your show. You're doing a great job with it. I really have enjoyed the first one. I'm not so sure about the second one, but I think you've actually found a medium that's very, very good for you. And I want to thank the Millers for everything that they've done for our community as well.
Wait, I think I hear Michael coming in to say so. Oh, Michael says, thank you very much. It's a joke. Anyway, this is Gloves Off with David Singer. Till next time, everybody stay safe. Thank you very much.